button.
I'm
Thanks,
on it.
Dustin. Shout out to Dustin. We always forget. He never does. So, number 6, myself with $5,504 in premium. Rocco Pearson, the dude is so consistent, which we're talking about today. Rocco Pearson, $6,504 in premium. Jordan Gillum, I think, Jordan, if I remember correctly, this is your first week producing from your new home state in Arizona. Is that right? Amazing stuff. So $7,177 in premium. Amazing work. DJ Robinson, I think this is the first place homeboy has been third place. He's never been number 3. Thank God he is this week. We were all celebrating. He's not number 1. So $8,213 in premium. Beat out by, I think this is Joe's brother, right? James Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
Martinez. $8,869 in premium, dude. Come on. And then Brian Howell absolutely wrecked everybody with $18,000 or $18,617. Bro, you did more this last week than I've done this whole month. Good Lord. Do you sleep? Shoot. So that is APV for the week. And if you're a brand new agent, we're going to switch it over to app count. So Mark, you'll do app count. But if you're a new agent, you're wondering, all right, well, what does annual premium volume mean? Annual premium is what we get paid off of. If you're wondering what this translates to in terms of income, about half of that is what you would see on the advance at a starting contract rate. What's really cool about these leaderboards is almost everybody on here, I'm sure, is not at a starting contract rate anymore. You've gotten some raises. And so if you're wondering what this looks like in terms of income, divided by 2, that's about what you would see if it all issued, which is a beautiful thing to be able to do in a week. So hats off to everybody. Good work. All right, Mark, you want to do an app count?
Absolutely. Outstanding, guys. Thanks for bearing with us. This is like day 1 of a college radio show, right? We're like, hey, guys, top 5 app counts. So app count's really important because it's just a sign of how consistent you're being in your business. And we've got our top 5 here with Joe Martinez in with 7 applications. Great job, Joe. Rocco Pearson, 7 applications. Excellent. Jordan Gillum, 7 applications. There's a trifecta there. And then we're bumping it up. Jason Givargiznia. I'm going to say this right. Givargiznia. Jason Givargiznia. No, Jason Givargiznia. I did that.
Givargiznia.
Givargiznia. Jason Givargiznia, 8 applications. Great job. I love saying that. I'm going to practice that all day. And Brian Howell, wow, no wonder he did 18,000 in business. 25 apps. Ladies and gentlemen, this is all reverse engineerable, right? Brian decided he was going to go out and make X amount of income. He designed his lead inventory around it and then dial, help those families. Great job, everybody.
And he still played golf last week. He still played golf last week too. Twice. Son of a gun. That's the key. If you want to go right 18 grand in a week, you just got to go golf in the middle.
Some golf, absolutely.
That's amazing. Amazing. All right. So interviews or STP, share the plan, show the plan, people who are wanting to build a permanent stream of income. When it comes to personal production, that's what we call temporary, the now money you make today, very quick, instant gratification, where you go sell a policy, protect a family, you're paid within 3 days. It's a beautiful thing. Cool part is if you duplicate yourself, you just created a permanent stream of income. And so for the people who are wanting to go out there and do that, Mark, I think if you could do this one, because I know you just got a couple of STPs. I don't want to leave anybody out.
No problem. Yeah, guys, produce and, do something once, get paid once. If you're interviewing and hiring, you are building an agency. So you do something once and get paid multiple times, as Chris and Val like to say. So here are people that interviewed, showed the plan more than 10 times this week. Brian Hamby, who's doing our book of the month today. Elijah Corujo, Betsy Barr, Shelly Jackson, Mark Newbauer, Joe Martinez, James Martinez, Dustin Hensley, Jeffrey Miller, Brian Howell, Barry Davis, and Jared Gillum. All STP'd more than 10 this week. Great job, everybody, building that business.
And
then
then
we're going to do recruits if you like, Elijah.
Yeah, so recruits or contracts back. You can do interviews all day long, but if you're not hiring nobody, you're just talking to folks. So people who are getting contracts back, getting people started with this company. I'll start with the Laura and Barry Davis. One new contract back. Jared and Jordan Gillum, contract back. Brian Howell. He still found time to go interview some people. What is happening? Got him a contract back. William Moreland, Rocco Pearson, Greg Fairclaw, our English bloke, all had one new contract back. Brian Hamby with 2. James Martinez with 2. Betsy Barr with 3. She's building a debt-free army. And Joe Martinez with 4 recruits this past week. And Mark Newbauer with 3. Jeff Miller with 6 in a week. In a week. Am I reading that right? Jeff, you got 6?
Right. You got Joe in there at 4, right?
Yep. Joe got 4 for the week. The whole organization hired 25 people. 25. Yeah. So, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to interviews, when I was brand new, one of the reasons I thought this, I struggled to wrap my mind around why do you need to do 10 a week? Why is that number so important? And when it comes to the retention rate, 10 interviews, you might hire 1 to 2 people, right? Or 1 to 3. And you might hire a bunch, but about 10% is what's converted to writers. Is that right?
Yeah.
So if you want to build a big business, it's a game of law of large numbers. Like if I were to go reverse engineer Brian Howell's numbers from personal production, he made a ton of dials and talked to a ton of people, wrote a ton of applications and wrote a bunch of APV. If you want to go hire a lot of people too, you simply just go do a lot of interviews, and then the numbers kind of distill down from there. And so we're actually going to be talking a little bit about that today, but that is the recruits for the week. And then Mark, go ahead and finish out the leaderboards with the groups, some group production.
Yes, we got group production here. Top 3 groups. Well, I'm going to mention we have 2 new writers as well. Jeffrey Brierly and Bridget Birchfield. Congratulations. First of many, many families you'll be helping. Congrats. Sometimes getting started is the hard part, but once you do, just, again, we're going to talk about consistency. Keep on doing it and you'll keep getting those results. Top 3 groups. Chris Cook Base Shop coming in at number 3. Tina with $19,205. Great job. Jeffrey Miller's group. Jeffrey here in a heat wave, in the middle of a heat wave, doing $21,181. And number 1 is Team Newbauer. Great job, team. We did 19,000. Wait, that should be reversed. This is just how it was written, so I didn't do that on purpose. We are number 2 at 19,190, and Jeffrey Miller's group, number 1 at $21,181. I read those all in reverse because it said 1, 2, 3. So let me do this accurately. We're number 3. Tina's number 2.
No, it's my fault. Let me do this. Mark Newbauer is number 1 with 49,190.
Oh my God.
Jeffrey Miller, number 2 with 21,181. And then my and Chris Space Shop at 19,000. I'm sorry. At 19,205. So I apologize.
I thought that should have been a 14. I just didn't want to say anything.
Way to go, Newbauer.
Great. Good team, guys.
Yo, that's great stuff. Hell of a week, man. Pretty soon, Mark, you're gonna be doing 65, 70 grand in a week. You're gonna be cresting over that $300,000 a month mark. I think awesome. Before the end of the year. What do you think, bro?
I think absolutely. Joe Martinez is month 1 agency owner. So we've got regional agency director on our sites next, or agency director on our sites next.
Awesome.
Oh, shoot. Come on. So Mark, what are we talking about today? Or actually, before we jump into the meat, I think Brian Hamby, you're covering Book of the Month, right?
Yep.
Good deal. Well, hey, Brian, before you jump into the Book of the Month, one of the things I always love is when people get to kind of know you a little bit, because you can talk about a topic, but we pick certain people for a reason. Like if you're helping host this call, we don't just not just anybody's asked. And so, Brian, tell us who you are, where you're from, why did you join Symmetry, what was it about this company, and then go ahead and kick off book of the month, man. Take it from there.
Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Hamby, direct to the wonderful Chris and Lauren Cook. I reside here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I actually have a office here at the Cook Agency. What really led me to Symmetry is when Cook gave me a call, offered me this position, and I just love the culture. The culture is like no other. I was actually working 60, 70 hours a week at a bread company and had no family time. I would get up, go into work about 5 o'clock in the morning, get home 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And then once I started here part-time, I'd dial from 6, 7 of the evening till 11 or 12 at midnight. But finally got smart and went full-time January 1st of this year.
How does your life look like now, Brian?
My life's a lot different. I actually got to, didn't mean to, I got to coach my oldest son in wee ball this year, something I never would have got to do if I'd still been at the bread company.
Dude. And if I'm not wrong, you're still getting bread, just doing something a little different, right?
Yes, getting good bread, just not having to work in bread.
Not to mention, Brian started out, you were working full time at the bread company.
Yeah, 60, 70 hours a week.
Thank you. I mean, anybody new, please hear that out again. Brian was not only formerly worked at a bread company, working phones and everything else, but he was working it full time, 60 plus hours a week, and coming into Symmetry, wanting a change and wanting to make a different life. And so no excuses there, family and all, he made it happen. I'm big admirer, big fan, Brian.
It wasn't easy, but yeah, we're making it happen.
That's awesome. Yes, you are.
Everything good though may look easy, but it's not. It's all up here. Yep. So I get the privilege of doing the book of the month this week. I'm going to talk about chapter 4 and chapter 5. But first, if you're not reading this book, you're missing out. This, I think, was it Joe that gave us this book of the month?
I think so.
I love it, Joe. I love it, buddy. I mean, this book has everything that we do inside it. If you read it and don't get nothing out of it, you've missed the boat. But chapter 4, consider the consequences. Make better decisions about time. Before you start on anything, you should always ask yourself, what are the potential consequences of doing or not doing this task? Well, if you're dialing, if you're thinking about dialing, you have to dial to book appointments. If you don't book appointments, you have no appointments to run unless you're working warm market. That rule in there, I like that. It talks about future intent influences and often determines present actions. The clearer you are about your future intentions, the greater influence that clarity will have on what you do in the moment. Next, think about long-term. This is a long-term business, however you look at it. Successful people are those who are willing to delay gratification and make sacrifices in the short term so that they can enjoy far greater rewards in the long term. I've already got a plan, guys, of what my 5 years is going to look like, what my 7 years is going to look like. And right now, I'm probably 3 months behind where my plan is. So I've got to start working even harder than what I'm working now to get caught back up on my plan. The greater the potential positive impact an action or behavior of yours can have on your life, once you define it clearly, the more motivated you will be to overcome procrastination and get it done quickly. And then the third one, 3 questions for maximum productivity. You can use 3 questions on a regular basis to keep yourself focused on completing your most important task on the schedule. First question is, what are my highest value activities? Or what are the biggest frogs that you have to eat to make the greatest contribution to your business? What's ours, Elijah? Dials. I go back to the huddle up that Chris had us on, but he had me on. Dials to set appointments, running appointments and helping families, and what's the third one?
Doing interviews.
Interviews, baby. Get that recruiting done. This is the most important question you can ever ask yourself. Now, chapter 5. This is a hard word for me to pronounce. Practice creative posteriority. To set proper priorities, you must set posteriorities as well. A priority is something that you do more of and sooner, while a posteriority is something you do less of and later or not at all. The most powerful of all words in the management let me start that over. The most powerful of all words in time management is the word no. Say it politely, say it clearly, so there's no misunderstanding. And I love this one right here. Procrastinate on purpose. Most people engage in unconscious procrastination. They procrastinate without even thinking about it. As a result, they procrastinate on big, valuable, important tasks and have significant long-term consequences in their lives and careers. You must avoid this common tendency at all costs. Guys, that's about all I have right there.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I love that last one. You know, my producing partner told me once, and now I just use it on my kids all the time. I live by it. He said, you know, in life, you know, in just about any decision you have to make, it's either easy hard or hard easy, right? So you either make the easy choice now, and life's going to be hard for a longer period of time, or you make the hard choice now, and life's going to get easier over time, right? So get down to that hard stuff, eat that frog, and watch things grow. Yeah, watch things change. That was great, Brian. Thank you.
Amazing stuff.
Brian Tracy's one of my favorite. I mean,
he's awesome.
Doesn't miss.
I mean, his voice is hypnotic, first of all, but if you listen to, there's a really, really good one, 21 Laws. I'm going to send it in band later, but man, this guy's basically got like how to live your life in one full book. Thank you, Brian. That was incredible.
Awesome stuff. Before we jump into the meat, I saw in the chat also, Jordan, thank you for moderating this chat and helping. I can't multitask like this. And so you moderating helps out a lot. Tina, do you have any tips for us today? Any tips that you would share with us?
Well, I had not planned any tips for today, but there's always tips. So everybody needs to be sure you're checking your pending daily. And also a sneak preview. I'm going to be talking about the Quility dashboard on Wednesday's Huddle Up call. So I want everyone to be getting into their Quility dashboard, get familiar with it. I'm going to be sharing some things that are kind of new features that maybe you don't know about because there's so much information on the Quility website for all agents, and it's going to help you keep track of your business, keep track of your recruiting. It's just really awesome.
Love it.
Wednesday, join me.
Join Tina on Wednesday and check your pending business. Kind of important. So, Mark, what are we talking about today, man?
We're talking about the 3 C's. There are a lot of ways to break this business down, but when it comes down to it, Symmetry does make it simple, right? It's never easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy, as Brian said. But Symmetry does make it simple. We've got a system to follow, and Elijah see that, broken down further into just, 3 main categories. That's consistency, calculations, and though this is a micro version of the bigger picture of plugging in, today we're going to cover conference. So these are our 3 C's. And I don't know which one you want to cover first, Elijah. I know you got a magical spreadsheet plan for us, but
Yeah, so we'll want to talk about the concept of consistency because you guys can see those leaderboards. And as a new agent, if I was just starting and I was in my first 90 days, seeing something like $18,000 in production is just incredibly daunting to me. I would look at that and be like, holy crap, there's no way I can make it here. Reality is anybody can make it here. This business does not discriminate. You don't have to come from a certain background to kill it here. You don't need to live in a certain area. You don't need to work a certain type of lead, but you do have to be consistent. And so Mark and I are going to kind of pass this potato back and forth on the concept of consistency because it's something that cannot be harped on enough. And the reality is, if you're not on the leaderboards, it's simply because you either don't know how to do this business, you're brand new, or you're simply not consistent. It's one of those two things. And cool part is you are in 100% control of both of those things. And so this should be a liberating call for you. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about how to be consistent. And one of the best ways to do it is to track your numbers. And I'm going to show you guys mine. I'm going to literally share my screen with you and show you my spreadsheet. And you can kind of see, okay, this is what it takes to be a top producer. And you can see week in and week out, what does it look like to be consistent? Because a lot of people, and Mark, you can attest to this as you're building, we get a lot of people who come in and they're kind of like fireworks. They go off for like a week or two, maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month, and then they fizzle out and don't quite make it. And so, Mark, when it comes to consistency, what do you think is the characteristics of somebody who is consistent? How do you become consistent if you're not? How do you know if you are consistent? So 3-part question there for you.
That's a lot. That's a lot to unpack, as they say. No, but there's a lot of ways. And by the way, guys, just to edify Elijah a little bit, I mean, talk about consistency. When Elijah came here, you were a full-time college student.
Yep.
We're talking about top people here. We just talked about Brian Hamby working 60 plus hours a week coming in here and part-time his way through. Elijah, you had a full-time college schedule and you were on leaderboards every week. So, it's not just all talk coming from Elijah. This is a guy who was on leaderboards while he was going to college full-time. So age, experience, background, none of that stuff matters so long as you're applying consistency. And I love what Chris Cook says. He says, you can't beat the numbers and the numbers can't beat you. It really, really is that simple. And sometimes I think a lot of us at Symmetry just like to explore different perspectives because different perspectives will resonate with different people in different ways. But when it comes down to it, guys, it's that simple. And, how do you tell if you're consistent? To answer your first question, it's not necessarily easy to become consistent, Elijah, right? But it is simple. Yeah. And all I'll say is you'll never yield results anywhere in life if you're not consistent. I like to compare it a lot to the gym because most people have, especially in American society and everything else, we've all had maybe body issues, right? And we're all either trying to get stronger, get bigger, get smaller, get thinner, get longer, get leaner. I mean, who knows what, but we all know that takes going to the gym or going to classes, going to do something regularly. And I know all of us have been to that point where you go to the gym and you lift really hard, for instance, right? You're sore the next day and you're like, I'm not doing that again, this week. God forbid you work another muscle group, right? You're just tired and you're not going to the gym that next day. And then you don't get results and you're like, well, I tried it. Well, but not really, right? Because it's all about the long game here. So how do you know if you're doing something consistent? Look at your calendar. And if you don't have a calendar, that's probably the number one thing that you've got to really re-examine. I admit that was That was my biggest challenge well into my journey here at Symmetry. And I know that I've got a handful of agents that thankfully have also busted through that invisible wall, because I've noted as a leader, and in becoming a leader, I say this humbly, I'm only a leader because I failed forward enough times, right? And I'm still failing forward. But along the way, I've learned so far that there are a lot of really great people with really great intentions here, when you're starting out. And the number one reason for people dropping out or not making it is lack of consistency. And so I say get that calendar, because I don't know who said it first. I credit Tony Robbins because that's who I heard it from. But it's a great little saying to remember. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail, right? And it really is that simple. You can't leave things to the wind. You got to calendar things. Once you calendar things, and I'm assuming you're going to abide by that calendar, right? Now you're becoming a person of consistency. And it's going to hurt if you haven't done it before. And most people haven't done this before. So brace yourself. Just like going to the gym and doing a leg day, it's going to hurt the next day. And you might even in retrospect be like, oh God, I hated that. But the more you do it, the easier it's going to become. And if you do it consistently over again, Chris taught me this, and it's absolutely correct. And again, speaking about, weightlifting and bodybuilding and all that, when you look at all the contests that they have in different industries, they're always based around about 12 weeks, right? About 3 months. So, Brian Tracy and others say it takes about 21 days to develop a habit. So every 3 weeks, you're going to seal in new habits and new increments of strength. So don't you dare do a week and a half of work and say it didn't work. Don't do 2 weeks and say it didn't work. You got to do 3 weeks consistently. And by the way, guys, I know I'm spouting off all over the place, but that's how we truly gauge our metrics. So we have metrics, as everybody here knows, do this many dials, get this many appointments, help that many families. But when it comes down to it, that's all based on a 3-week average, right? So if we say meet with, 12 families a week on a part-time schedule, and you meet with 12 families week 1, and then week 2, nothing, because 12 week you didn't get anything. Well, you really only met with 6 families a week so far, right? And so on and so on. And it's going to kill your average, and that 12 doesn't matter anymore. So this really, really is a business of momentum. And the way to get that, again, answer your question, I say, Elijah, is know that growth hurts, right? Remember when you're a little kid and you grow and your leg hurts and your parent, well, that's growing pains, your bones are stretching. Same thing here. It might hurt a little bit, but that's okay, that you're growing. But you got to force yourself into that schedule that you've created. Counsel with your mentor on a schedule that's workable. Build your inventory around filling that schedule, and you can't lose. Will not lose here. You will guaranteed get apps every single week on a 3-week average. Again, you saw Brian Howell turning in 25 apps, something ridiculous. Double-digit apps. He's not going to do that every week. He might choose to, but ultimately, over time, he's going to average out on a full-time schedule exactly what he wants to get out of this, because he's being mindful of his schedule.
Good stuff.
Can I say one fact I found after you and I talked Friday? This is crazy. I know everybody heard the doubling a penny every day thing, right? Here's something about consistency. If you just for a moment equate money to mindset, right? And in here, our activity really does, our impact equals income. So these things correlate together, your personal energy and money. So in this case, I'm going to use a penny as an example of your output, your energy, right? If you took a penny and doubled it every day for 31 days straight, this will blow your mind if you haven't heard it before. At the end of the 31 days, you will have $10,737,418.24. Now, here's the key: consistency. Listen to this. That was a penny doubled every day for 31 days, $10 million. If you take a penny and double it every other day, so you're like, whoa, I just doubled it. I'm going to take a break tomorrow and then I'll double it tomorrow, right? I mean, 10 million bucks. I could do with 5, right? So you take a penny and you double it every other day, At the end of 31 days, how much do you think you'd have, Elijah? Ballpark.
I would say about half of that, because you're doubling it every other day. So maybe 5 to 7 million, something like that.
I could live with that, right?
Yeah.
Why not? Well, actually, Elijah, if you double the penny every other day for 31 days, you would have $163.84.
Oh, shoot.
Think about that when it comes to your business and consistency, and know that that's what you're leaving on the table when you decide that, hey, I did phones yesterday. I'm going to take a break today. I worked hard. I'm going to go, reward myself. Not yet. You're not. My advice based on facts.
That is good stuff. And one of the things too, when it comes to consistency, if you are not a consistent agent, I think it also kind of boils down to a few things on the emotional side. Now, one of the things I love about this business is it's based off of math, not emotion. You take something like stocks, for example, there's a lot of emotion going on with stock fluctuation and investing strategy and investing patterns, or real estate, for example. Real estate is heavily market centric and emotion based buying. When it comes to our business, there's not a whole lot of people buy what we have because of emotion, but the businesses that we have grow because of math. And what I love about that is it's predictable. Emotions are not predictable. Emotions change day to day, and they could be difficult to control. And when it comes to consistency, a lot of times I find agents are not consistent for a couple reasons. One, it could be that their why is not big enough. And I'm not going to harp on your why, but I will say if you're fighting for something that's big and important, you will be more consistent. if you're in this business and you kind of have this vague why of, hey, I just want to make more money. That's not a big enough why. For Brian Hamby, for example, his why was, I need more time with my kids and Chrissy. That's a huge why. And he was willing to work leads in another time zone and literally dial till 11 p.m. to make that happen. And now he's reaping the fruits of his consistency. And so it could be because of a lack of belief. If you don't view what we do as important as it is, you're not going to push past those emotional barriers that will come up. And the reality is what we do is so stinking important. Like I literally just texted one of the guys on my team a screenshot of a Facebook post of somebody posting a GoFundMe link because their mom didn't have any insurance. And what we do is so unbelievably important. And if you are not consistent, you might just need a reminder of how important what we do is. Because if you actually view what we do as important and you have your stack of leads and your clients to call, then it's going to be hard to derail somebody who's that focused on a mission, And so another reason you may not be consistent is if you're simply not disciplined when it comes to difficult things. And the reason it's easy in this business, and I know this firsthand, I'm going to be very transparent with you guys. It is hard to be consistent and disciplined if you're only accountable to yourself. How many of you started resolutions at the beginning of the year, or maybe you wanted to work out more and you go to the gym alone? Going to the gym alone, unless you're a unique person, you're going to stop going, or you're going to stop pushing yourself past your muscular points of failure if you don't have a workout buddy with you. If you have a workout buddy with you and you have somebody else that you're accountable to, you are way more likely to go to the gym when it's raining, to go to the gym when you stayed up really late and you're tired. And if you're working out by yourself and you have, say, a workout regimen of, I'm going to put this many reps, you get tired at this many reps, it's only you that you're keeping yourself accountable to. And you are not going to give yourself as hard of a time as someone else is who you're accountable to. And so if it's just you that you're accountable to in this business, it can be very easy to let yourself off the hook. What does this look like? Let's say you are sitting down and it's Monday, you have 0 appointments on the calendar, and you're like, you know what? I want to book up my Tuesday and Wednesday, but you don't verbalize that to anybody else and you don't hit it. You're not letting anybody down but yourself. And so be accountable to somebody, because it'll force you to be consistent, whether it's your wife, your husband, whether it's your upline, downline, put it out there, what you're fighting for. And so I want you to write this down too. When it comes to consistency, consistency plus discipline times time equals results. I saw this equation in a book where it said consistency plus discipline equals success. That's not true. You can't be consistent for 2 days and expect to have crazy results. It ain't going to work. So consistency plus discipline, because you can have discipline for a short period of time. Consistency by nature is something that happens over and over and over again. It's compounding. And then you add the time element to it. Consistency plus discipline times time get results. And I'm not going to say success, because everybody's here for different reasons. Success can be different things to different people, but you can't argue with the results. And so on top of that little equation, it's important to remove emotion from the equation as well, because you can have a rough day and then blame the system that I didn't write any business because I was having a bad day. You know, I wasn't wearing my lucky shirt. That's why nobody bought from me today. But when you actually track your numbers, you're removing emotion, and you can't argue with numbers. You can argue with emotion all day long. You can make excuses for why you didn't feel like working today, or you can make excuses for why you acted a certain way during the appointment. You can't argue with numbers. And so one of the things that I heard Grant harp on all the time, and he got this from Chris, where Chris would say, you can't beat the numbers and the numbers can't beat you. And then to add to that, Chris or Grant would say, measure what you manage. And you can't manage what you don't measure. If you want more results and you're not measuring your numbers, how are you going to manage your results? As an upline, if I have agents on my team who are sucking, let's say they shat the bed. Let's say they didn't do what they were supposed to that week, for lack of better words. I can't help them if they don't know their numbers. They can't come to me and say, hey, Elijah, nobody's buying for me. All right, what are your numbers? I don't know. Well, come back to me when you have them. That is true for anybody on this call. That's true for me. Chris gives that treatment to me too, in a good way. Like, we have a huddle up every Thursday. If I don't have a number, if he's like, hey, what'd your team do on this? How many A-leads did you allocate? And I don't have them. He's like, all right, call me back when you do. Because he can't help me without knowing the numbers. He can't help me manage what I first haven't measured. So what I want to do is I want to actually share my screen with you guys and show you my spreadsheet. I'm going to show you what I track. And I'm going to focus purely on the personal production piece. That I have a whole nother spreadsheet for recruiting. So we could look at spreadsheets all day long, but nobody likes Excel that much. So I'm going to share this. You guys let me know if you can see my screen here. There we go. Can you folks see this? Somebody give me a thumbs up. All right, bet. So I found this type of spreadsheet at the end of February, which is why I didn't track these numbers. So don't think that I took 2 months off. I did not. You can see my lead investment. But this spreadsheet is what I call my business report. And let me see here. I track several things. I track the weeks, the months. I track the leads that I take, number of dials I make, contacts, appointments sat, appointments or apps, APV written, issue paid, money invested. I'm going to harp on this real quick, actually. My issue rate, I track my issue rate, my show ratio, and then my favorite, dollars per dial, baby. Last week or first week of June, I made $21 per dial, whether or not they answered. It's a beautiful thing. I also track my income month to date, so feel free to look at that. I'm pretty transparent about what I do. So when it comes to consistency, I want to look at leads taken. So the only time I never took leads was an off week, and I allocated them to my team. And so this is the only week that you see that I'm not getting leads. I also track how many I took because if you're treating this thing like a business, right? Your leads are your inventory. If you have a storefront and your storefront sells, Brian Hamby worked for a bread company. Let's say you sell bread. If you're not tracking how many loaves you're getting, how are you going to know how many you have available to sell? How are you going to know how many you need to sell in order to be profitable? How do you know if you need more? How do you know if you have too much? You got to track this. And so this is how many A leads I take. If you're wondering, Most common question I get, Elijah, what leads you working? What combination? Well, I work all kinds of leads, bud. But this is what I invest. So it varies week to week. Some weeks, bro, there's a comma in my lead investment. Those are scary weeks. But look at the week after, boom, 7 grand, 12 grand. And so look at the issue rate right there. It's a beautiful thing. And so some weeks I invest not a whole lot. Last week I only took call-ins. Call-ins are cheap, baby. So less than $200 lead investment. There was some lead credit in there too. Last week, $548. So like it varies, but I'm getting leads every single week. Another thing is I dial every single week. You may be looking at my dials and think, man, he's really not making that many. It's because I take A leads. If you want to make less dials, you trade more money for less time. If you're like DJ Robinson and you do not care to make $1,000 in a week, he takes 0 A leads. Homeboy is only working 50 centers. And so you're trading either, like Brian Howell said on the call last week, you're either trading more time for less money or vice versa. And so my dials are not crazy, but you know what? If I wanted to have a massive week, look at the numbers. Look how predictable they are. Sat with 8 families last week, wrote 4 apps. Mark, that's part-time numbers, right? You sit with 8 families, you're at 2 to 4, right on the money. And then if you go back to, like, if I sat with the week before that, I got kind of lucky. I sat with 10 families and wrote 8. And so sometimes you'll have those fluke weeks.
You're right. Dials are really arbitrary, right? Because as I was told when I started, look, if you got more time than money starting out, go ahead and get the older leads. If you've got more money than time, go ahead and get the newer leads. Absolutely. Right? But either way, you get in and you do those 3 weeks, those first 3 weeks consistently. And every time you miss it, you got to start over, right? Reach that 3 weeks consistently. You're going to have your re-up. And what I love is looking at your investment amount. And no matter how much you put in each week, there was an ROI, right?
Every single week.
On that 3 week average, a big ROI. I mean, you and I have played, it's no secret, we played penny stocks before, right? There's no ROI like this, especially one that's guaranteed.
Yeah.
The caveat being, you just got to pick up the phone. As Ryan Miller says, rich, poor, right?
Oh, yeah. And when it comes to tracking your numbers, you have to do it every single week. And so if you're looking at this and you're like, well, I don't know where to start, I would start with, what do you want to make? Whatever your income goal is, reverse engineer that into how many applications do you need to write? If you're a new agent, one application is going to pay you $525. So if you want to make 10 grand, you just figure out, okay, that's how many apps I need to write. Then from there, you reverse engineer, how many leads do I need in order to book that many appointments to write that many apps? And then you reverse engineer that. Okay, how many dials do I need to make to talk to this many people to book this many appointments? It's math. There's no emotion involved. It's not, oh, I need to make sure I get enough sleep so that I'm feeling good today so I can go dial. It's simply math. And so this is the tracking sheet that I use. Mark, are there any numbers on here that maybe you have questions on, or you want to point out to a new agent, like, hey, you need to focus on this. This makes a big deal. What stands out to you from a consistency standpoint on the personal production front?
Well, truly, again, and I'll just accent what I pointed out before. I think what really matters, bottom line is, we know you can reverse engineer your income here, right? So if we boil it down to that, it really comes down to $2 invested. And I mean, I can see just plain as day, when on average, when you spent, more on leads, when you invested more on leads, you had a higher issued paid that week for the most part. There are a few weeks here and there, but again, that's why we do everything on a 3 week average. And I'm not saying that to say, hey, go empty your bank accounts. I'm simply saying it to say, look, it is reverse engineerable. We know that you're going to get about a 4 to 5 to 1 net income ratio based on what you invest in leads on. So if you're investing, $300 a week, on average, you're going to make about $1,500. And I see Elijah, he's a pro. He did about $5 grand, but I'm just talking average. You still have a nice 4 to 5 to 1 return. And then, of course, the most important, I think it all comes down to, is boil this down to the very simple activity tracker. And this is a business tracker. This is what you need to do to track your overall business, right? But like you said, when your agents come to you, things like that, when I'm counseling with my agents, it all boils down to three things: number of dials, number of contacts, and number of appointments. Because we know if you're getting the appointments, we can help you through that, right? Symmetry has an abundance of trainings, videos, strategies that we can employ with clients to get our apps. That's no problem. But if you've got those three things and you've got them right here: dials, contacts, appointments, those are the ones that I say, those are the ones you got to get micro with, because that allows you and your mentor and to really gauge your business and what's going on, right? Because if we know that you're making a lot of dials and not getting a lot of contacts, well, are you triple dialing? You know, how consistent have you been with your leads? Because sometimes people will get leads, they'll dial and reach nobody, and then in week 2 they're like, well, nobody was home. Okay, they very well could have been on vacation that week. That's why we say dial until, right? You need to resolve the leads. Some leads aren't going to get resolved in week 1. You got to resolve them in week 2. At the same time, if we see that you've got a certain number of contacts, but not that many appointments, well, now we know there's probably an issue with the phone script. So let's do some role playing there and look at how we're swinging into some of those objections and things like that. So anyway, to me, those are the three most important for a new agent coming in. If you're tracking those three things, then you and your mentor, as long as you're getting, again, inventory is just a no-brainer. You can't, I always say, you can't open a vitamin store and then buy no vitamins to sell, right? Like you got to have inventory. Don't call it leads. Don't call it an expense. Don't call it this. These are families that have asked for help, that you have committed to help. You said, hey, I'm going to reserve these families. I'm going to help them. I'm going to go through and find out who doesn't need this anymore and who does, right? That's the commitment you take on when you get that. And I always like to say, it's way beyond investing in leads. Every one of us has had that call, right, Elijah, where you buy an old lead, a bonus lead, you call somebody, they cry because whoever is on that form has already died and nobody has helped them because somebody decided not to resolve those leads, right? So take that seriously too.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say before we get off here too. When it comes to consistency, I just want to encourage you guys with this business. It is weird how much in our personal life spills over into this business and vice versa. It's kind of like all blended. It is incredibly difficult to be super consistent in one area of your life and to be really inconsistent in other areas and then them not influence one another. What I mean by that is, like, if you want to be consistent and on your personal health side of things, you just let yourself go. You are not consistent at all. You set goals and then you just let yourself down, or you create a standard for yourself and then you don't follow it. What you're doing is you're creating a mental pattern. And then what you do in this business, when you set a goal or a standard and then you let yourself down, it's easy to be inconsistent in this business if you are also inconsistent in every other area of your life. Now, I'm not saying it's all related, but what we do is habitual patterns and tracking numbers and metrics and behaviors. And the same is true in so many other areas of your life. And so if you're really consistent in this business, I would encourage you, let that consistency spill over into your personal life, because it'll only benefit you. And I mean, think about this. If you're, I love using workout analogies, which is ironic because I don't work out that often. I'm building a gym in my garage though, to eliminate the excuse. And so, because I want to be more consistent. But if you're really inconsistent in something that requires discipline, what's to say you won't do this exact same thing in this business? What's to say, like, what's going to be different? If you just lack discipline in your diet or in your fitness or in your relationships or your communication, how are you going to be different here too? Because if you're inconsistent and not disciplined in those areas, you're going to do the exact same thing here. And if you want something different, you cannot do the same thing you've always done and expect something different. And so if you want to be consistent, I would do an audit of your life get some help, get some accountability, and say, hey, am I consistent in this area? What do I appear like here? Am I disciplined here? What can I do to be more consistent and disciplined? Because if you do, it's liberating to actually know where you're at, because you can't diagnose something if you don't know what the heck's going on. And so the reason I encourage you to do that is because I'm somebody who was not consistent. And if you look at my activity report, there are certain weeks I fall off, but I always bounce back. And that's the important thing, because consistency isn't being a freaking robot all day, every day. Consistency is being able to adapt. It's being able to look at your numbers and diagnose an issue and say, hey, I sucked at this week. My issue rate was really low. I'm going to focus on that this week. And if you're not tracking your numbers, there's no way you're going to be able to make those quick fine-tune adjustments. And that is what makes an agent consistent. And you can do that in any area of your life. And so
you got to take stock, like you said, Elijah. And the reason, by the way, that I use, not because I do work out a lot, but it's not because I love working out or love this or love that. The reason I prefer to use that analogy is because, and Brian Tracy taught me this in that other book that Dustin put in the chat. But what I love that I learned from Brian Tracy is that discipline is a muscle. It's a place in your brain that is either been developed or not been developed yet. So the great news is it's a neural pathway that you can build. And most of us don't have that neural pathway because we do have so much freedom in life to make choices. And sometimes it's easy to let the caveman mind take over and say, no, me run, scary, me run. So this is a muscle that you need to develop. And one thing that I think I learned from Brian Tracy or Tony Robbins was, if you really want to build that muscle, first of all, sometimes it's harder to be proactive than it is to just say, I'm not going to do, something. So a little trick that you can use is find a bad habit that you have. Yep. It runs the gamut, right? We all have bad habits, things that we wish we didn't do as much as we did, or things we wish we didn't do at all. The next time that you've got that craving or that urge to do or have or get or, say whatever it is that you're compelled to do, have, or say, take that moment and don't. And it's going to be hard. I can't tell you how many times, because we have the pantry, right, with all the food and everything, and there's salt and vinegar chips and everything else. And I'm like, I do just fine when I'm at work and I'm not at home. I can be as disciplined as I'll get out. But then if I'm walking past that pantry, I always joke to myself, it doesn't count if it's not on a plate and you're not sitting at the table, right? So when I get that urge, and I'm like, I'm not gonna take a couple chips out of the bag now, it hurts because your mind has already been like, wait, they're right there, and it's gonna be salty and vinegary, right? And you want it, but then deny yourself that and let it hurt, because your brain's gonna trick you. And about 10 minutes later, it's gonna think of trust me, it will happen. It'll take maybe an hour even, where your brain's gonna keep tricking you. Don't let it. And you're going to reverse that training, and you're going to, and this really is about brain science, guys, but that's how you can start to create that discipline muscle. And then at the same time, be proactive, create a new thing on your calendar. That's why we love Miracle Mornings so much. Create a new thing on your calendar that you have to do every day, and just watch things become a little easier. Watch life change. As Laura Davis says, I think she says it best. You said it, Elijah, earlier. You got to have a why that makes you cry, right? You got to have a why that if you wrote it on a Post-it and put it on your mirror, that when you skip dialing or you skip out on your responsibilities, you can look at that why and say, you know what, whatever I'm going to do instead of this is more important than that. And 9 times out of 10, it's not. It's just hard. It's just scary. So that's all I wanted to add to that before we get to our final C.
Final C. We'll wrap it up in 2 minutes here, because we're bumping up against the clock. Conference. You got to go, and you need to go because you're going to get all of the tools, the tips, the tricks, the association. You're going to get the experience. It's going to expedite your learning curve to be a consistent agent. I know this firsthand. I sucked at this business, and I would have quit had I not gone to my first conference. And when it goes back to the numbers, my biggest month, I love saying this because it's such a stark contrast to before and after. You guys probably heard me tell the story before, but my first 3 months, my biggest month was $2,100 in premium, $2,100 for the month, not the week. And I went to conference the last weekend of August. I came out of that in September, part-time. I wrote 17,000, 2,100 to 17 grand. Conference was the key component there. And so, I mean, if you're debating about going, just ask yourself, do you want to be an inconsistent agent? You want your income to look like this, going downward? Or do you want it to look like that? Because that's typically what happens. Anything you would add to that, Mark, before we head off here?
Simply that if you've been to conference, you know what it's like to have a baby, right? And if you haven't, you don't, and we can't explain it. We can't. But what I can say is you've come this far. If you're really, really going to go through the process of signing up for a state required licensing course, sitting for an exam, getting contracted with the company, and facing all that's scary about this business, and you're actually serious about it, don't skip the thing that everybody that's been doing this says is the most important part of this business, right? We don't have some, goblin behind a curtain handing us golden tickets every time we get somebody to the, to conference. This is just something we tell you because it impacted us so much and it works so well. So get in, be part of it, be proactive. If you're not registered, just please, we're adults here. Be bold and be transparent and call your upline and let them know why. Is money an issue right now? Is travel an issue right now? I don't know. I know, for a while it was really tough for me. I still haven't gotten my wife to a conference because we live out of state and my parents can't watch, but there's no way I'm missing conference. I'm the one providing this for my family.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes, hell or high water, you've got to get there. And we're here to help. But if you don't tell us what the issue is, if you're not registered now, I just got to ask, why not? Go do it after this. Go do it. It's at the top of Band. It's a permalink. You just go on there, you click, you register, and you'll get the hotel info. And you've got a while to book your hotel. Just get reserved for conference because seats are filling up. We're partnered with the Young Agency. They're huge and growing. But please stop for a minute. What's your why? Think about why you came here, and then say, is it worth me going to? Is this thing worth enough for me to take a risk and just go to this thing that I don't even know what it is or how much it'll help? I don't know what your fears are. But be transparent with your upline and we'll help you figure it out. No pressure, but again, you're wasting your time and your money and you're fooling yourself if you're not planning on going here. I get more blunt every conference because it's insane to me that you would buy into a Subway franchise and then they go, hey, there's a franchisers meeting. We're going to go over everything that you need to know to run a successful business. You're going to meet some of the other owners and get tips from them there. Nah, I got my franchise. Okay, good luck selling sandwiches. So anyway, that's all I have to say. And I hope you guys take it from the heart.
Absolutely. So we're going to get off here. If money is an issue, for me, money was the biggest issue about going to conference. You could pay for everything: ticket, hotel, plane, food, beers with me afterwards. Lord knows that's what we do. Go write an app, for crying out loud. 1 or 2 apps pays for everything. And you got 3 months to do it. So go go track your stuff, get consistent, get registered, for crying out loud, because we want to meet you. And you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.